I'm about to spend $15,000 in the next 5 minutes buying the most extreme survival tech on the internet. And then I'm going to chuck myself into the wilderness to see if it actually allows me to survive. So I guess the first thing we need is some sort of shelter. So there's a site here called Heim Planet. These tents just get crazier and crazier the further you scroll down this page. Oh my god, it looks like you'd use it to colonize Mars. Its special geodesic structure is designed for wind speeds of up to 180 kilometers per hour. This will be such a cool one to test. So now I guess we've got to kit out that shelter. With the brightest torch. This is brand new and updated. I actually tested this same company's previous brightest torch, and I'm pretty sure it ended up being our best performing YouTube short ever. That was 100,000 lumens. This is 200,000 lumens. What is that going to look like? We could get a professional thermal imaging camera. This is the kind of gear that professionals would actually use for real-life, long-distance surveillance. It's literally me about to enter my Predator era.
Whoa, hey.
The Tiny Pump 2X. Oh my goodness, they weren't kidding. This thing is miniature. It actually looks so well thought out. It's got a magnet at the back, it's got a camping light at the front, and then a rechargeable battery on the inside. Oh yeah, we gotta make sure we can eat while we're out there. Coolest survival cooking gear. I don't think I'm gonna be cooking much on that. The Fire Pit Plus. So it absorbs the smoke. You get a full view of the fire because of this mesh that it's made of. It doubles as a grill that you can cook your food on. And then on top of that, the side is a 12,800 milliamp hour rechargeable power bank. There's also something here called the GoSun portable solar stove, which cooks your food using reflections to angle the sun. How cool is that? Although some part of me is thinking, is that gonna actually work somewhere where it's not very sunny, like the UK? The Vitaloop allows you to get pure water from any lake, river, pond, or sink. Because when I want to get pure water from my sink, I open the tap. I did test a product like this once called the Life Straw, which is basically just a straw that has like every single type of filter on the inside, so you can just stick it into a lake and drink from it. The MSR Guardian Purifier. Nothing is safer or easier to use for purifying the most demanding backcountry water sources. The Reel Watch. Oh, the Reel Watch, because it's got a fishing reel inside of it. Hunt and fish at the same time. Tell me you're in America without telling me you're in America. I feel like if you actually caught a fish, took it out, and it saw what you caught it with, it'd be straight back in. What am I gonna wear? Dry Toes waterproof merino socks. An innovative 3-layer system. That feels like a double win, because as well as waterproofing, those 3 layers are gonna mean insane insulation. Here's a concern that's only just bubbled up. What if we get lost? Starlink Mini is a compact portable kit that can easily fit in a backpack. So this will be directly beaming to satellites in the air. And this is saying that we can have max download speeds of over 100 megabits per second. Okay, so now we need a way to power all of this survival tech. That's not, a lightning rod and some hope. A hand crank generator. You just either crank with your hands or pedal with your feet to generate the power you need. I have a feeling this is going to be immensely slow to charge things, but let's see. Okay, so Anker does a portable solar panel. I've always been really curious about solar panels. They feel on paper like the biggest possible, easiest win, but will they generate enough electricity to actually be worth the hassle of carrying them? It says it can deliver 30 watts of power, which would be incredible. Now, what if things get dangerous out there? A wound closure zip tie stitch. That actually seems like a really good idea. You just use zip ties to tighten your wounds. You're joking! Swiss Champ XXL. Can you imagine, oh no, honey. I think I left my ballpoint pen, bottle opener, reamer, punch,
electrician's blade, 2 Phillips screwdrivers, toothpick, tweezers, scissors, can opener, small blade, pen,
Oh wait, no, it's in the other pocket. This is cool. The removable airbag system 3.0 deploys behind the wearer's head within seconds. So this would stop you getting buried should there ever be an avalanche or even a mudslide. Okay, but at some point we are going to need to be able to light a fire. The Exotac Titan Light. It is basically a Zippo on steroids. There's the Pyro Putty, which is a dual arc lighter with also an extra compartment that has Pyro Putty inside of it, which is, I guess, just an extra flammable substance. Why is it called Summer Blend? Makes it sound like a fruit punch. The Air Lighter 2. So this uses superheated air so that you have no toxic and hazardous chemicals. I can't wrap my head around that. It blows air at 760 degrees Celsius. A deep red fire is about 600 to 800 degrees Celsius. That is so cool. Stormproof, waterproof, windproof matches. It says you can light them, you can put them underwater, you can take them out, and the fire carries on. I'm at knives and blades and guns and yep. Yeah, fair enough.
Everything is finally here, but this is the part that I'm actually worried about. It is freezing cold. I have almost no cooked food. So can all of this gear actually save us from this situation? There's 18 products, and to spice it up, we're only going to be able to keep the best 8 in our inventory. Let's see which ones are good enough to make it, going roughly from cheapest to most expensive. Starting with the $7 zip tie stitches. So, orange me. You have no idea how many takes it took to get that right. Imagine that you are this orange. You're wounded, you're in the middle of a forest, there is no one here to stitch you up. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Well, with this, we should be able to stick down on either side of the wound, pull on the zip ties. Oh, right, yeah. So it really has managed to pull the wound together. That's gonna hurt a lot less than sewing. It requires 0 skill. It's gonna resist the force of the skin pulling apart, which might be helpful for reducing scarring. Plus, the middle section is transparent, so you can keep an eye on the wound to make sure it's not getting infected. So I say we keep these. These zip ties aren't quite big enough if you had a really large gash like this, but they would be good enough if you just had small cuts. At $13 now, the Stormproof matches look pretty badass right out the box, because unlike a normal set of matches, which come in that thin papery packaging that would probably last about 12 seconds in torrential rain, these guys come in a sealed waterproof container. And you know me, no claim is going untested here. But good start. It is bone dry inside. And before we actually light them, since I'm also wearing these Bushbuck dry toes socks right now, why don't we just... I swear, if this doesn't work, I've ruined my entire day. This is a really weird feeling, because if I put my feet back into my shoes and wriggle around, it does kind of feel like they're wet because there's water sloshing around inside my shoes. But it's only when I take my feet out that it's clear that they are in fact dry, while also feeling like they've got a suit of armor around them right now. The inner layer is super cozy, the middle layer is the waterproof one, and then the outer layer is designed to protect you against the bumps and scrapes that you might find in an environment like this. So for example, all these rough textured objects, you can rub them as much as you want. You can literally try and sandpaper your feet. Nothing, don't even feel it. The only thing that has managed to penetrate this armor is thorns. I tested them, they still hurt. So this is not indestructible. These are more expensive than half the shoes I own, but they are better than half the shoes I own too. So these are going in the bag too. Anyway, back to these matches. So you get 25 of them in the box, and then also 2 spare strikers on the inside, in case this one on the outside gets ruined. Again, smart. Like, how tragic would it feel if you had 25 unlit Stormproof matches on the inside that you couldn't light because your case got wet? And so, at least according to the website, I should be able to light this up, get it wet, and it'll still stay lit up. So when you get started, that is a fire. It looks immediately a lot more powerful than a normal match. And now we're gonna go for the full send. Actually, try and wet it. Ah, there you go. And it's still going. If this works, this is actually black magic. Okay, it's out. It did. Oh my God, that is sick. That is so cool. So apparently what's happening is that this red coating you see on these matches releases oxygen as it's burning, thus sustaining the flame even when there's no air around, which is why when we dunk it in this beaker, you can see bubbles coming out. And it's also why this is almost impossible to even blow out. I actually can't believe what I'm seeing right now. What? This is actually such a good product for not a crazy price. We're carrying it, and I'm getting carried away. I actually need to start saying no to stuff. Now, while the sun's out, because you never really know in the UK, this feels like a pretty good time for my favorite part of the day. It's food time. Or possibly starvation time, depending on how well the portable solar oven actually works. Well, it's nice and compact, I'll give it that. So, you open it up. It's got a little wedge on the inside which keeps it opened up. Right, time to get our food inside. Here's one I caught earlier. So this is a solar vacuum tube. The idea is that it perfectly insulates the food so the heat that it has doesn't leave it, all while these reflective surfaces around it gather as much of the sun as possible and direct it at the tube to bring in new heat. It's a pretty intricate little system. Like, it's got a red dot here, and it's saying that for optimal cooking, you want the shadow of that red dot to be lined up with the center behind it. And then it's got the ability to prop itself up at just the right angle to achieve that. So let's start the timer. This thing is advertised to be able to cook meals within 20 to 30 minutes. And so if this works, that's actually really potent, because this isn't just food. If it can cook your food, it can also boil water, therefore sterilize water, all with what effectively amounts to the power of thin air. So let's come back in a little bit and find out. And now we're on the subject of cooking. Now feels like a pretty good time for the lighter face-off, which is the best lighter in the world. Starting with the Permanent Match, which is kind of like a half match, half lighter. So it kind of operates like a match. You grab this flint rod, you strike it against the casing, and you try and spark it. It lights, but because this has lighter fluid on the inside and a proper wick, it can stay lit for a really long time. So you can light the match pretty easily, but it's harder to transfer that lit match into a lit fire because the average piece of wood you're going to find out and about is not readily combustible. So really, in most situations, you'd also have to be carrying around a fire starter too, making it a little less portable. It's an interesting hybrid product, and compared to a cheap $1 lighter, it probably will be more reliable when it gets wet or when it's particularly windy. But then again, there is something just so effortless about the cheap lighter that the Permanent Match loses. It's actually a little less convenient and would need topping up with lighter fluid pretty regularly, so I'm gonna pass on this one. But let's say we step it up to the $30 mark. We could then get the way cooler sounding Plasma Arc Lighter. Now, plasma lighters have become a whole genre at this point. They use oppositely charged electrodes which create an arc of plasma between them when powered, which is hot enough to set things alight. And the cool thing about that is they don't need any fuel, they just need charge. But the extra cool thing about this plasma lighter is that it also contains pyro putty. This is basically your fire starter. So let's see if it works. Let's dab it on the top there. I will say it does feel like a slight design flaw that the trigger for the plasma lighter is so close to the plasma itself, meaning that you have to get really close to the fire. Now let's see if that's enough to get the whole thing going. As expected, this is currently doing nothing for my waning sensation in my fingers. You know what? It actually works. It's a good enough fire starter that you can be rest assured that the tiny little bit of putty that will fit into the bottom of this one lighter is actually enough to get you going. Okay, but probably the coolest thing is this pyro putty. They're saying that even if you get it wet, you can apparently just strain it. Then what I'm really excited to see is, can we now still light this? If this works, it'll be so impressive. It's definitely a little more resistant to lighting than when it was dry. Okay, it does light. Eventually. This is so cool. It's by far my favorite so far. All topped off by the fact that the casing is completely waterproof and glow in the dark too. I can't see it getting much better than this. But then at 3 times that price, we have Zippo's Chad older brother, aka the Titan Light. So this one still runs on lighter fluid. It's more traditional, but it allows for longer intervals between refills than a basic lighter because of an O-ring seal that prevents evaporation. It's got a waterproof exterior to 1 meter depth. It's got supposedly a high spark flint wheel, which was actually kind of satisfying. Plus, you can also tell this is the most reliable flame that we've had so far. Question is it a powerful enough flame to light the wood even without a fire starter? Ooh, the answer of which appears to be a pretty resounding yes. I mean, it won't light wet wood, but in any case, it's going to do a better job than any other traditional style lighter. So this is basically just the lighter done right. It just doesn't seem nearly as good value for money as the Plasma Arc Lighter. Okay, this GoSen has been going for nearly 38 minutes. And some part of me is honestly expecting this to have done absolutely nothing. Let's find out. Whoa, holy moly. This thing cooked. I mean, let's be honest, it's a pretty sad looking meal, but it's actually steaming in here. It's gonna need a little longer to get it to where I want it to, but this is gonna work. Ow. Now, the FlexTail Tiny Pump is, wow, these guys weren't kidding. Thing actually feels like it weighs nothing. So there's a lamp on the front, which has 3 different settings. I call them basically non-existent, actually pretty decent, and practically a flashlight. The back is a magnet. I mean, you're not going to find a huge amount to stick it onto in the wilderness. It's more for snapping it onto your own equipment, but it's also not a very strong magnet at all. They even sell it as being able to oxygenate your campfire with the air that it's blowing, which there is a pretty easy way to test. You know what, actually, that does do the job. It is rapidly accelerating this thing's growth. And then, of course, finally, it's a pump, so it can deflate if, let's say, you want to vacuum pack some clothes to save space, but then also inflate with 4 kilopascals of pressure, which is pretty good for the size, but it's not all-encompassing. Like, we originally planned to use this to inflate this absolutely insane tent that we got coming up, but it's just not enough power. This thing feels like the living definition of jack of all trades, but master of none. So I think we'll pass. Right, how's our dinner looking? It's been 1 hour, 15 minutes since we first put this on. Oh, I can actually smell roasted peppers. I'd say it's not been 100% completely direct sun the entire time, but then again, it has been cooking for 2.5 times it said it would take. So, ooh, okay. You know what? It's kind of all smoke, no fire. Because when you pull out this food tube and you see the steam and you hear the sizzle, some part of you for a split second thinks you're at a professional barbecue. But then none of this is particularly charred in an appetizing way. It tastes completely fine. You'd survive, but it's not fine dining on the go. Everything's a little chewier than you'd expect. So, does this make the inventory? I'm going to say no. I think there's a fundamental problem here because this is kind of a gamble. And you might be able to take a gamble on whether your solar-powered charger fills up your Nintendo Switch or not, but you can't take a gamble on whether or not you get dinner or whether that dinner is cooked. So whether you're in Nevada and let's say there's an 80% chance this works, or you're in the UK and there's a 20% chance this works, I don't think I would ever choose to pack a cooker that might work if I can choose to pack a slightly bigger cooker that will work. Not to mention that after all that, it's still only one person's worth of food. But if we really want to do survival cooking right, then we should have a look at the really fun $100 plus stuff, like this magic 760 degrees Celsius wand from Luft. So if the lighters we tested earlier were level 5, this definitely feels like level 50. I mean, just the sheer energy needed to pump out air at this temperature means that this Luft thing actually does need a permanent mains connection. Sounds like a hairdryer. Although imagine getting those two confused. It's actually a little alarming just how quiet the thing is, considering the power. But to really test it, we're also going to need our fire pit, which, at least based on the website, is being pitched as the ultimate way to do fire. If you showed this to a caveman, they would die on the spot. All right, I think now it's time for the thick boy wood. Oh, I'm so curious how this fares to just using a lighter. God, you can see how hot the thing gets. It actually does, in a way, feel like a magic wand. Because you're just waving air over these logs, and suddenly there is fire. Oh my God, it's like a flamethrower. What the hell? But yeah, like, we have fire. I do feel like this is not the kind of thing you take on the go because of the insane power requirements and size. But to be fair, I can also see the benefit, like it's way less fiddly than a lighter. And because the whole thing is electric, it's cleaner too. Plus, kind of like that tiny pump, there is a hyper boost button to oxygenate your fire. And as expected, that is a lot better than the tiny pump. All topped off with the fact that on the back end, there is literally a bottle opener. So you cook your drink and then you taste it.
That's not how that works.
So I actually like this. It just wouldn't be on my top 10 list of products to take on a quest with me because, well, it feels like it's designed for a home barbecue, and it's also just about the most expensive way to start a fire. Now this, though, this is even better. What's happening here is this USB chargeable pack on the side, which kind of makes the whole thing look like a robotic pig, is powering 51 air jets to inject the fire with oxygen. That oxygen makes the fire burn bigger, brighter, and warmer, which is absolutely working and is also already on its own pretty huge, but also that the fuel burns more completely, thus leaving fewer unburnt particles in the form of smoke. So actually, let's light this fire so we can see a side-by-side of how much difference it makes. This thing literally feels like when you unlock the next OP weapon. Okay, so just making sure that both fires have been given an equal chance to get going. There's actually such a difference when you look at the normal fire. It looks very peaceful by comparison, and this is like a highly accelerated version of the same process. It is literally like in Mario Kart when you pick up one of the stars, with actually, just like they advertised, zero smoke as far as I can see, whereas there's absolutely smoke here. But it gets smarter. They've specifically designed this grill to help radiate the heat outwards instead of upwards, where it would be completely wasted, and I have to say, it definitely works. I feel so much warmer here. And also, there's an app. Yes, even fire is now app controlled in 2025. I mean, not even to mention the fact that this fire hasn't needed tending once, whereas this one is literally about to go out. If the Ghost Sun was metaphorically all smoke, no fire, then this is the literal embodiment of it. I was a little worried that all the fans were going to kill the vibe of the fire, but you still feel the crackle. This is on 50% fan speed and you can barely hear the fans. It's actually not an issue at all. I freaking love this thing. Yes, you have this bulky power bank that does need to be charged separately, which yeah, does kill a little bit of the spontaneity of wanting to have a bonfire. But then the thing really does make the most of that power bank. Plus, you could also use it to charge your phone while you warm up. This BioLite thing is a big product, but I would absolutely still take it with me. Right. It's starting to get really dark, which means that even though this is one of the most expensive products in our entire video, now feels like a pretty good time to actually put up the $5,000 Mavericks base camp tent, which tries to solve the problems with traditional tents, you know, the absolute nightmare of putting them up and then keeping them up using mathematics. So in theory, all we need to do is to inflate these gray struts. We could use an electric pump. We are going to do it the old-fashioned way because it's not like we're a tech channel or anything. Why are we doing it like this? It feels like it's coming alive. Does it not feel like the final boss of a video game suddenly making its entrance? Oh my God, I'm dead. Wow. It looks so unique. And the reason is that the two founders from this company came up with a geodesic structure, or in other words, a dome shape with rigid triangular elements that is pretty much unbeatable in terms of redistributing stress throughout it. And maybe I should become geodesic. And also, because it all connects together, it also happens to be completely inflatable with one pump in one place, or two people in two places. It's up to you. But that's unlike a lot of tents which need separate valves, etc. Ah! Uh-oh. Oh. Yeah, it's the real deal. Oh, my butt stings. Oh. You can really tell that, like, this thing is not just a pretty face. This is designed to survive the harshest climates on planet Earth. And then, on the inside, wow. You could literally sleep like 10 people in here. Wow. Let's take it for a spin then, shall we? Good morning. It is day 2 in the wilderness, and obviously the tent is still standing. It's an absolute feat of engineering. Assuming I was packing for a trip in the extremes, this would definitely make the cut. But the question on my mind now is, now that we've decided that we are going to start using products that require power, you know, like that insane fire pit, what's the best way to generate that power? So from this company called K-Tor, we've got the foot pedal charger, as well as the hand crank charger. The fact that this has 1 amp on it doesn't exactly inspire me with confidence. And then what I thought we could do is compare both of those to the Anker solar panels, the much more passive way to generate electricity. So we've got each of the 3 products ready. Joseph is going to pedal for 10 minutes, I'm going to crank for 10 minutes, and Drish is going to watch the solar panels for 10 minutes. And now, each of us is going to connect our chargers to an identical iPhone 12. Okay, let's see whose charges the most in 10 minutes. Let's go. One thing to note about every single one of these chargers is none of them has a battery inside. They can't store the energy they're generating. So they have to be plugged into the thing they're charging at all times to be useful. Gotta crank like I never cranked before. So we're at 6 minutes right now, and not a single one of our phones has booted up. How have I not generated like 1% of battery at this point? I'm dead.
2,000 years later.
We've been pedaling, cranking, and watching for 30 minutes. It looks like they're charging with such little power that they can't get iPhones that are already dead to even boot up in the first place. So the long and short of it is, you do not want to be in a situation where you're relying on one of these to save your phone. Like, imagine trying to charge a laptop. I don't think we're keeping any of these. So at this point, we've done our cooking, we're charged up. It's time to find some water. And given the absolutely insane credentials of the MSR water purifier, in theory, I shouldn't be scared to use it to drink pond water. And yet, this still feels like a really bad idea. This might look like just a bit of mud, but lake water can have all sorts of nasty stuff that you can't see. Giardia, E. coli, salmonella. So people's lives could very much depend on one of these. And now we've got to do what I really don't want to do. But to be fair, the only reason I'm even remotely willing to do this is because of my special socks. So anyway, the point I'm making is, don't drink this. Honestly, so impressed with these socks. I mean, don't get me wrong, my feet are cold, but the fact that they're dry makes it 10 times more bearable. But then this is where the MSR purifier comes in. So the idea is I drop this pipe into the water, I pump up here, that's going to draw the water through all the different layers on the inside. So that's chunky filters for things like mud, and then microscopic filters for things like bacteria. All with this self-cleaning mechanism where some of the water that's taken in is used to consistently flush the filters on the inside. Okay, let's check the results. This is actually a big moment. We have zero idea what this water is going to look like. It's actually not as clear as I was hoping it would be. It's definitely done 98% of the work, but you can still see this faint muddiness to it, which is enough that I probably wouldn't drink it if I had the choice. But if you didn't, then I can't tell you by how much I would rather drink this than the alternative. So I would still keep this with us, just because if you absolutely needed it, it could save your life. But now let's say that you had water. Let's say you had a little too much water. Let's say that water was frozen and you were buried underneath it. Yeah, this was a terrible segue. I'm talking about the avalanche airbag. So, long story short, this thing is designed to protect skiers from getting buried underneath an avalanche using a physics principle called inverse segregation. It explains that when you're in a moving mixture, like the snow in an avalanche, larger particles will rise to the top, while smaller particles will find their way down. And this incredibly brightly colored airbag effectively makes you, the skier, into the largest possible particle, which helps you stay close to the surface. Okay, so it's pretty hard to actually demo this this without being in an avalanche, but just to give you an idea, I'm just gonna crouch down for stability. 3, 2, 1. Blimey. Oh my God. The thing takes about 3 seconds to fully inflate, but when it does, it's like half the size of a sleeping bag, which all completely makes sense because this isn't like a car airbag, which is designed to pop out in a split second to immediately absorb impact. This thing just needs to be massive and it needs to be orange to have the best chance of keeping you above the snow and being seen while you are there, which I think is pretty fair to say, especially if you're up against a white background, it does pretty well. So honestly, this thing's really impressive. It actually works. It's just the use case for it is so incredibly niche that we don't really need it. Now, as much fun as I am having out here in the woods, I miss my YouTube shorts. Enter the Starlink Mini, which is packaged like a medium pizza. Oh gosh, oh dear. It's one of those peel tabs that's never as smooth as it should be. And yeah, that's not coming out. Okay, well, you've taken me to this. I have no choice but to now destroy your packaging. There we go. Yeah, much better. It really does feel like we're getting a sort of base upgrade here. Man, I gotta say, this Starlink is such a nondescript looking piece of tech. Like, genuinely would look like a dinner plate when it starts to get dark. So let's follow the only 2 instructions to point it up and to plug it in. And almost as if the gods have blessed us from above, at this point, we should have internet. So if I click connect, we're online. Okay, so speed test. It feels pretty rapid. We're getting almost 40 megabits down and about 5 megabits up. Also, this is using the next generation Opera One R2, our sponsor, which is so smart. Like, one of the new features is tab traces. If you're like me and when you start working, you get so carried away that your tabs end up looking like a conspiracy theorist pinboard, then tab traces subtly underlines the most recent tabs you've been on. The darker the underline, the more recent the tab. So you can keep everything open while still instantly being able to see the key things that you're focusing on right now. Side note, I am actually quite impressed with this Starlink. The speed definitely varies because it's communicating directly with low Earth orbit satellites, so they move, but it's not dipping below 25 megabits per second for me. Oh, 60, there you go. And there's so much with this browser. Like, when I was planning out this video, being able to have the master document open and then just slide the individual product web pages in to split screen them immediately feels so sick. And when it's been more helpful for me to watch videos to learn about things, the fact that those videos will just automatically pop out into this floating window means that I'm never getting sidetracked by leaving my main document. Link below to check out the new Opera browser. So this is actually a better thought out piece of kit than I expected. We are in the sticks, very literally. So being able to get fast enough internet for HD Netflix, for example, is no joke. It's weather resistant. It can apparently melt snow, although to be fair, so can most electronics when they're on. It's got a kickstand so you can adjust the angle, and it's even got like a pipe adapter so you can attach it somewhere high up and get an even more unobstructed view of the sky. So honestly, yes. Definitely. Just remember, you do still have to pay for the data. This is just a really good device at making sure you receive it. But now it's time for some of the most expensive, most extreme products in this video. Starting with the flashlight, which comes presented like a sniper rifle, probably because it actually has the range of one. This thing is not kidding around. Like, just to give you an idea, the average torch that you might find lying around your garage has a 1,000 lumen output. I can't even wrap my head around what 200,000 is going to look like. Not to mention the other shocking stat, this thing is so bright that it can apparently illuminate objects up to 1,618 meters away. That's like half as far as the human eye can even see during the day. It's got an OLED display for navigation, which means it can display black pixels with 0 light emissions. Ironically. The thing is such a monster that it's got heat warning labels, it's got 3 separate fans to pull in cold air from the outside, as well as a dedicated handle, just so you can save your hands from getting singed from the main body of the thing. It can fast charge in 2 hours, and the thing even works as a power bank to charge other things. Only thing is, we need it to be a little bit darker before we can properly test this thing. So, there we go. Now we're talking. Let's go. Okay, let's start with the 1,000 lumen torch. 3, 2, 1. Oh my God. Wait, that's actually way better than I was expecting. I guess because the majority of the light is concentrated into a very narrow beam, it's actually lighting things up 50 meters away pretty much. That's just 1,000 lumens. I'm actually scared of what this thing is going to do. I'm shivering, and it's only 80% because of the cold. 3, 2, 1. Oh my God. Oh my God. I feel like I could light up an actual city with this. This is like a lighthouse that you can fit into a backpack. This doesn't even feel legal. I feel like if I left this on for too long, I'd accidentally summon Batman. Is it completely overkill for 99.9% of users? Yes. Are you better off going for a torch with longer battery life instead? Almost definitely. But then does this do what it says on the tin? Abso-frickin-lutely. And I want to keep it. I've just realized we're at max capacity. I love the fire pit. These socks are complete lifesavers. We're still gonna need the zip ties for small cuts. We did, though, have two different products, both for the purposes of lighting fires. So the Stormproof matches and the Pyro Putty lighter. Oh, can a man not just have both? Even though I did find the matches cooler, I think on balance, because the lighter also contains the fire starter, matches are gonna have to go. Now, while most of the stuff that we've seen in this video so far would just make for an extreme form of camping, the FLIR Scout Pro is like something you'd use if you were chasing criminals with the CIA or something. It's designed to be really simple so that you're not fiddling through endless menus when you're on the hunt, which I would say they've definitely achieved. There's literally one button to cycle through modes, one toggle to turn things up and down, and then a record button. All right, time to test it. And just to be very clear, beyond this fence, I can see practically nothing. So, can thermal vision solve my problems? Wow. I can see sheep. They're incredibly far away, but they're like moving red things with 4 legs. Those sheep must be between 500 meters and 1 kilometer away from you right now, but they're each individually tracked and highlighted. I mean, I've used plenty of mini thermal cameras before. Most of them look really choppy and they run at like 5 frames per second, but they do the job. This is a much more playable 30 frames per second. This thing has the widest field of view available on the market, so you can perform rapid sweeps of an area. And the thermal sensitivity here is like top of the line. The idea is pretty simple. Every single object emits infrared radiation. The hotter the object, the more infrared it emits. And so what this device is doing is picking up not just the presence of that infrared, but tiny differences in infrared, displaying them as these gradients of color on screen. Wow, that is so cool. But none of that really matters at all if you can't actually use this thing to find someone. So, rescue mission. Drisha is going to spend the next 5 minutes trying to hide herself in the woods, starting now. And we're going to see if we can get her. The possibilities are a little scary. Oh, that's her. Hello?
I'm ready.
You're ready? Okay, let's go. I mean, I can't emphasize to you just how dark it is out here. If you just had a phone's flashlight, you'd have no hope in hell. Where would you look? How would you know where to go? I mean, there must be 50 kilometers of woodland all around us right now. Okay, so you can tell there's no one here because the forest itself is the warmest thing in the frame. So let's just keep going. Immediately. Okay, see that? There's like a bright red object. It's got to be her. What kind of position is she in? She's definitely this way. Oh, right, yeah, look. So trees can block that thermal signature. Oh, that's her. Okay, come on, let's go. I really hope it's her. Trish? I was actually a little bit scared for a second, wasn't you? And we were gonna die? Okay, mission complete. This is insanely fun. And most importantly, I can totally see how it's an incredibly powerful tool. Just, not for the game that we're playing. Anyway, this was probably the highest effort YouTube video we have ever put together. So if you do appreciate it, then let us know and we'll try and do more. Should we go home?